Hello and welcome to the Porcelain Dawn channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Red Rising by Piers Brown. So this book takes place in a distant future, a couple of centuries or millennia ahead of us, where the world is stratified into colors. The people are stratified into colors, based on their function in society. So you have reds at the bottom, the sort of the workers, the serfs, if you will, and then you have gold at the top, which are the nobles, and then you have several colors in between for, governmental functionaries, soldiers, business class, the mercantile class, things like that. This one starts on Mars in a mining colony with a red, so a worker, and it goes from there. The plot follows, as I said, this worker named Darrow. He starts off in a mining colony. He's young, he's a drill operator. He doesn't have much hope for the future. He's married. Without going into too many spoilers, something unexpected, unwanted, somewhat horrible happens to him, and the events unfold from there. I think it's an interesting plot. It's nothing that hasn't been done before in one way or another. Again, without going into spoilers, it's kind of Spartacus-y in a sense, but as I've said before in several videos, having a plot having plot outlines that have been done before it's not a minus points issue for me. Like you have these books that say there's only 7 original plots. Everything else is just a derivative of that, and that's true, especially in genre fiction, like fantasy or sci-fi. There's only so many, there's so many books that have been written. Everything has been written in a certain way before. So the fact that this story isn't, the bones of the story isn't new, it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I really, really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the plot. The prose was quite simple. In fact, I've heard it said that this book is YA, young adult, and I think that comes from the fact that the prose is quite simple. But I would disagree because it's pretty dark. I have a daughter, she's 1, so I can't really comment about young adults. But I don't know if I would give this to a young adult. There's sexual assault, I think, or implied sexual assault. There's, lots and lots of violence, lots of very violent violence, straight from the start, and it's very graphic. So I'm not sure if I would class this as young adult, or maybe I just don't know what young adult is, and this is exactly what young adult is. But I would give this to, I probably wouldn't give this to anyone below 15, 16, even if it is somewhat simplistically written. And again, going back to the simplicity of the prose, I think it's a good thing in this case. The way it's written is, it's a conduit for the story, always. Sometimes a beautiful, rich prose helps the story, and in this case, I think a very simplistic prose helps the pacing, because this thing is a roller coaster. This book is 100 miles a minute. Once you start, it starts off slowly for about 3 or 4 pages, and then after that, it just accelerates all the way to the end. You don't really get a break. It's just, it gets you hooked. It gets hooked into you. It hurtles through the book, and the pacing, the light way in which it's written in terms of prose means that you get this kind of pacing. And I think the pacing is one of the great points of the book. You know, it's a rock and roll roller coaster that carries you along. I think I read it in a day? No, a day and a half, just over a day and a half. Like I couldn't put it down. And when you're there, when you get a good session of reading and you just hurtle through it and you don't see the time pass because it's so intense, you know. Like the way I saw it was written in a very cinematic way, not in the sense that it's very descriptive and everything like that. It's just it feels like a film. You know, the action, the pacing, the way it's structured, and the characters all make you feel like it's a film, and not in a bad way. You know, not in, oh, this isn't a book, this should be a film. It just feels very, very Hollywood, you know, big set pieces, and again, for the 5,000th time, fast pacing. Yeah, I just think it was the lightweight prose helps that completely. You know, I wouldn't change it. I think having more complicated prose would be to the detriment of the book, honestly. As for the characters, I like them. I like them a lot. The main character is called Darrow. Something that it involved a bit with he's sort of an unreliable narrator. I don't know if that's correct in this term, because it's not that you can't really trust what he says. It's just that he says what he's thinking a lot, but he doesn't say everything that he's thinking. So he's keeping some things from us as much as he's keeping them from other characters in the book. And that way, there's these twists and turns which are able to blindside us as much as they're able to blindside the audience. And I'm sure there's people out there that think this is some sort of a cheap plot device. But for me, I enjoyed being bamboozled. Maybe I'm somewhat simplistic, but for me, it wasn't a problem. It kept me on my toes, and it kept everything how it was intended to be. You know, shocks where they were meant to be, false confidence, despair where it was meant to be. I think I was puppeted by this unreliable narrator, and I enjoyed it. I greatly enjoyed it. There's other great characters too. Paxo Telemanus, he was really interesting. He was really fun. Goblin, Fichtner. I think Fichtner might be, I don't, probably not saying that right, but Fichtner, Fichtner, I think. But the way that he kept saying Boyo would make me believe that he's Welsh, perhaps. First Welshman in space, potentially, in the future at some point. So that's interesting. Yeah, all of the characters, even the ones that weren't Jackal. Jackal is a great character. And even though they weren't, like I said, the prose wasn't super rich and the descriptions weren't super in depth, there was more than enough description and more than enough story beats for each character to make you aware of who they are as a character, to give you a really good idea of how they act and what they believe, which is great, you know, to have so many fleshed out characters in such a small book. I think it's great. I really enjoyed it, and I really got attached to the good and the bad characters, and the good and the bad of each character. It was it was really pleasing. And then, so the conclusion I would have for this book, as in case you can't tell already, I really, really enjoyed it. You know, it's exactly the kind of sci-fi that I like, you know, space opera, if you will, sort of swords in space like Star Wars or things like that. On the front cover of the book, it said it was a mix between Ender's Game and Hunger Games. And I can see, I've never read Hunger Games, but I can sort of see that. But for me, it was more a mix of Ender's Game and Game of Thrones, even. Like the whole the whole second and third act were a real mishmash for me between Game of Thrones and Ender's Game. So yeah, like both great books, both books that I love. So yeah, it was really, really enjoyable, and the pacing just kept you on the hairs on the back of your neck standing up, kept you buckled in your seat. Like I said, I read it in a day and a half, which means that one, it's a quick read, and two, it doesn't let you put it down. It was really, really fun. Mm. Who is it for? I would say it's for sci-fi fans. It's for people who want to read a book on holiday. It's for people who want to read a book at home. It's for people who just want to have a good time. I would also recommend it as a gift. If you have friends that read infrequently, or would like to read more, or buy these books and don't start them but always put them down and don't finish them. If you have friends that like movies, if you have friends that you want, yeah, for people who want to read more, whether you want them to read more, whether they want to read more, this is a great book because it's so easy to read, it's so fast-paced, it's so action-packed that I think it's a great gateway drug into reading. So yeah, 2 thumbs up. Couldn't really recommend it higher. Yes, there are better books in terms of how they're written and, you know, literary achievement. But at the end of the day, a book is a medium of entertainment. And this book was extremely entertaining. And that is a talent in and of itself. And a lot of writers forget that. And I think Pierce Brown did an excellent job. And this was the first book in a trilogy, although now I believe there's 6. And I'm pumped, very, very excited to read the next 5. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know down below whether you read this book, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, whether you think I'm wrong, if you gave it to somebody, what they thought of it. And also, as always, if you have any recommendations of something you think I should read, please let me know. Okay, thank you.